While the Renaissance world was busy polishing halos and perfecting portraits, Hieronymus Bosch was off painting pure madness. His canvases are packed with fish that wear robes, birds that eat people, and creatures that defy both logic and anatomy. It's like he peeked into a dream journal kept by a medieval philosopher on mushrooms. But Bosch wasn't being weird for weird's sake. Every strange detail feels intentional, like part of a moral fable told through chaos. His work draws you in with its insanity and dares you to find meaning. Was Bosch simply imaginative, or was something haunting him? Let's take a closer look at Bosch's weird and fascinating world and maybe find out what made him paint the way he did. Let's start with the man himself. Bosch wasn't chasing beauty, he was chasing truth, as disturbing as it might be. And though we know frustratingly little about the man himself, what he left behind is enough to suggest that he saw the world in layers. Beneath the polished skin of civilization, he found rot, greed, lust, pride, and painted it with an almost gleeful clarity. Most of what we know about Bosch's life is guesswork. His real name was likely Jeroen van Aken, born in the mid-1400s in the Dutch town of 's-Hertogenbosch. His last name comes from this town, and the records show he barely left it. But though his physical world was small, his internal universe was massive and terrifying. He lived in a time thick with religious anxiety. People feared demons, damnation, and eternal torture, not as metaphors, but as very real possibilities. Christian teachings were becoming more graphic, more psychological. The devil wasn't just out there, he was lurking inside. Books like Dante's Inferno weren't just literature, they were maps of the moral world, guiding terrified souls away from eternal punishment. Witch hunts were beginning to stir, and every strange illness or misfortune might be blamed on demonic forces. This was the world Bosch absorbed, and when he picked up a brush, he didn't paint from the surface of his culture, he went straight to its darkest depths. The best example of this is the Garden of Earthly Delights. It opens like a book, 3 panels telling a story from paradise to ruin. The first panel shows the beginning, the Garden of Eden, with Adam and Eve under God's watchful eye. But even here, something feels off. Yeah, there are similar animals, elephants, deer, giraffes, but also a lurking dog lizard and a strange bird with something unholy in its beak. Eden, in Bosch's world, was never perfect. The seeds of doom were already sprouting. The centre panel is the most famous and probably the most puzzling. A sprawling scene of naked people playing, kissing, swimming, and lounging in oversized fruit. It's like a medieval Candyland if the candy turns sour in your mouth. This isn't a biblical moment, it's pure allegory. Everyone's indulging, but there's no joy, no laughter. The expressions are oddly blank, as if even pleasure has become mechanical. Giant strawberries and translucent tubes loom in the background, while weird structures, half organic, half architectural, frame the action. It's beautiful and disturbing in equal parts. Then comes the fall. The final panel is hell, rendered in detail that feels almost forensic. Here, punishment is not just brutal, it's imaginative. A pig dressed as a nun urges a man to sign a cursed contract. A monstrous bird devours humans and defecates them into a pit. One poor soul is being crucified on a musical instrument, while another is being tattooed with musical notes on his bare skin. And yes, those notes have actually been transcribed and played. It sounds like something between a funeral dirge and a lullaby gone wrong. At the centre stands the Tree Man, part human, part structure, with a face that might be Bosch's own. His empty gaze looks back at us, calm amid the chaos, like someone who's accepted the doom he once tried to escape. Everything in this panel feels like it belongs. The tortures aren't random. They're tailored. Lustful people are punished with intimacy turned grotesque. Gluttons are force-fed or transformed into food. It's poetic, if you have a dark enough sense of poetry. While Michelangelo's hell in The Last Judgment is dramatic and sculptural, heroic bodies tumbling through divine wrath, Bosch's hell is quieter, colder, and more internal. There are no noble figures being judged here, only ordinary souls, tangled in their sins and trapped in a machine of consequence. Michelangelo's devils still obey gravity. Bosch's devils obey no rules at all. Where did Bosch find these images? Some say he suffered from hallucinations, perhaps caused by ergot poisoning. What we now know contains the chemical base of LSD. The illness, called St. Anthony's Fire, caused burning limbs, convulsions, and terrifying visions. Whole villages once fell into trance-like frenzies, dancing until they dropped. Puts me in mind of the 1990s. Bosch painted St. Anthony more than any other saint, and in each image Anthony is besieged by absurd demons, flying fish, seductive pigs, hybrid creatures with teacup heads and hooves for hands. Puts me in mind of Christmas. In The Temptation of St. Anthony, we see Bosch at his wildest. There's a chicken on skates, a demon blowing a horn made of tree bark, a monstrous face peering out of a jug. Each corner of the painting is its own theatre of absurdity, and yet St. Anthony remains still. He doesn't fight, he endures. Perhaps Bosch saw himself in that endurance, hoping that if he painted the horrors, he could survive them. But the hallucination theory is still just a theory. There's no evidence that Bosch ever suffered from St. Anthony's Fire. What we do know is that he came from a long line of painters, possibly trained in a family workshop. He would have had access to illustrated manuscripts filled with medieval monsters. The margins of religious books from his time are filled with strange beings, snail knights, people being eaten by ducks, hybrid animals with too many eyes. Bosch didn't invent weirdness, he organised it. The giraffe in the Garden of Earthly Delights, probably lifted from a travel book. The bizarre birds and beasties, they resemble the entries in early bestiaries, medieval animal encyclopedias that blurred natural science with moral teaching. Every creature was a lesson, every mutation a warning. Bosch simply brought them all together, stitched them into one big terrifying sermon. And though his hellscapes draw the spotlight, Bosch also painted more traditional themes, scenes from Christ's life, portraits of saints, allegories of virtue. But even in these, something always feels off. A creature lurks, a face twists, a background figure does something that doesn't belong. It's as if Bosch couldn't help but see the darkness under every surface. Or maybe he believed that showing the rot was the best way to remind people why the light mattered. After his death in 1516, Bosch's reputation didn't vanish. He became something of a cult figure. Peter Bruegel the Elder, another Dutch master, clearly studied Bosch's style. Later in the 20th century, surrealists like Salvador Dali claimed Bosch as one of their own. They saw him not just as a moralist, but as a visionary, someone who painted directly from the subconscious long before Freud had a name for it. Today, Bosch's works are scattered across museums, drawing crowds who squint at his chaotic worlds, trying to decode them. There are puzzles, posters, even fashion collections inspired by his creatures. His work has become iconic, not just for its strangeness, but for its honesty. He painted what scared people, what tempted them, what they didn't want to say out loud. And somehow he made it unforgettable. It's true, we know almost nothing about him. No letters, no diaries, just the paintings. But maybe that's enough. Bosch spoke in symbols. He let his demons do the talking. And what they say is still relevant today. Be careful what you desire. Watch where you wander. Sin looks fun until it isn't. And in the end, no one escapes the tree man's gaze. So the next time you stand in front of a Bosch painting, don't rush. Let the chaos unfold slowly. Count the heads, the wings, the mismatched limbs. Look for the tiny scenes playing out in the corners. There are stories within stories, warnings dressed as jokes. And maybe some part of Bosch is still watching you, wondering what you see when you look into his world. Because in Bosch's universe, the deeper you look, the more it starts to look back. And if you like to look back at other outrageous artist statements, much like your boy Boss here, then by all means kindly like this video and subscribe to our channel, Art's Wonders, because we wonder about art as much as you do.